Hello everybody. So this tutorial is meant to help with that situation where you've had an annual review and you have looked at our lovely matrix, which we're looking at right now, because you feel that the student's current banding level or even the points level within the band needs to change, usually needs to increase. And what we're particularly interested in uh, with this tutorial is about the frequency with which something happens. So you'll have gotten used to by now certain types of language that are in this matrix, which have always been a bit open for debate. So if we look, for example, at the social communication column here, you'll be familiar with the fact that to score 1 point, you've got this in-depth description of what social communication means, and you'll see that it says these things may impact. But further down, if you want to get 2 points, it's something that sometimes impacts, and then still further down, we're looking at something that often impacts. And if it's really, really complex, then we look down here and it says that this almost always leads to stress and anxiety, etc., etc. Now, that kind of hierarchy of descriptions from something that may happen, something that sometimes does, something that often does, something that almost always does, is kind of repeated in other areas. Here it is across the three areas of SEMH. You see it repeated there as well. That's something particularly from point 1 to point 4, occasionally, sometimes, often. How do we tell the difference between sometimes and often? Well, we could go on forever and a day about the differences between those. But what I'm interested in this tutorial is when you want to change the banding on the basis that a behavior or a difficulty or a challenge is happening more, how we can actually evidence that. Because what we get a lot of the time in panel is people are submitting evidence and saying, look, this situation has gotten more difficult, more challenging. The person is presenting in this way more than they did. But what we really need is something meaty that we can just actually hang on to and look at and say, okay, there's the information in black and white. So this tutorial hopefully will show you a couple of simple ways that you can really kind of make your own evidence in order to support that appeal to the panel when you want an increase in the banding level. So this is a very simple way of gathering some of that information. So now you've got to picture yourself, you've been lucky enough to get 20 minutes or so of time when you can actually get into a classroom and do a bit of observation. So this is a really simple document that I've just whacked together in a few minutes. You can do this yourself, or I can share this one with you. So this is the kind of thing we're talking about when we're looking for some really solid evidence. So this observation sheet, you can see there, straightforward thing. I've put the name of the student in there, Giselle, one of our most challenging students. You all know her. The date is incredibly important because we're trying to build a picture over time of things changing. The day, okay, so we're looking for context here. Which day of the week is this? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So this is not just about helping us on the panel or you when you make a submission, but also it's helping you in your day-to-day activities, because you can start to look for if there's a pattern. Do things happen on certain days at certain times? And likewise, the next line here is about the time. When did you start this observation? When did you finish? And how many minutes did you watch for? I mean, I would recommend each of these observations should be at least 10 minutes to give them a bit of validity. And then here we've got the context. We want to know a little bit about this lesson. So in this particular example, I'm saying this is a literacy lesson. It featured a bit of group work. There was also some individual work. They were being taught by a supply teacher, and at the time there was no TA available in the room. You can extend that. You can put as much context as you like. As we drift into the lovely summer season, you might find more and more lessons taking place outside. That's quite important. You might want to mention that this is coming straight after PE or straight before PE or before or after something else important, an assembly perhaps, or maybe taking place the day before a school trip and everybody's very excited or whatever. And then this line here is telling us which specific matrix descriptor we're looking for in this instance. We're looking at learning behavior, all right? And that we in Panel will have the matrix in front of us all the time. So when we look at an observation sheet like this, we know exactly what it was that you were looking for. And then you start your observation, you've got your matrix in front of you, you know what you're looking for, and every time you see that behavior, you can put a tick in the box or fill the box if you're doing this on a laptop or a tablet or something, and just as time goes on you're observing it happen, and every time it does you fill the box in, just like keeping 5-bar gates really. Nothing really elaborate. The less elaborate the better, because then the information will be clear, and you can do that over a number of minutes. You're observing for 10 minutes or so, and your 10 minutes comes to an end, so you stop recording, and then that little piece of paper there, you keep in that person's file, or ideally you do it electronically and you add that to their file. And over time, what we'd like to see in Panel is several of these over quite a long period of time, hence the importance of the date at the top, so that we can see you've been observing this in different contexts, on different days, with different teachers, and over quite a long period of time. Sometimes you'll want to observe for quite a long period, not just 10 minutes, it might be half an hour or longer before the presentations actually become really obvious. But what that does is that it means on that particular day you've taken a snapshot. This is how many times I'm seeing this happen, and then you kind of can decide for yourself how you put that into the matrix. Is this more than was happening before? Therefore, if before we were saying it was often, should it now be increased to something else? Is it happening almost always? You can use this observation sheet to back up what you're saying. It's good practice, by the way, to get this observation sheet signed by the teacher, as well as signing it yourself. So therefore, if that'll be two different people who've signed, which obviously adds more validity to it as a piece of evidence. So then when it comes to presenting this in a summary form, you can use something like this. Again, very, very simple. So here's Giselle's record. Now we can see that we've been making observations of her in terms of her learning behavior, her social behavior, and her social communication across an entire academic year, 6 terms across the year, and we've made many observations, and this is to demonstrate the kind of pattern that we are getting. Ideally, in order to get some kind of a decision on an increase in banding, it would be great to have the previous year and then this year so that we can see an increase. But even just breaking down the year, you can see here that in terms of her learning behaviour, we've observed her in each term, and this is relatively high number of learning behaviour. She's a really challenging kid at the back of the school class, giving you difficulties. The social behaviour, well, that's kind of increased as the year has gone on, so that's become a bit of a concern, and that might be something we'd want to highlight in an annual review. Her social communication, which we must have had a concern about it in order to bother observing her, but in fact the numbers are pretty steady across the year. Nothing really to be too alarmed about there. And as I said, the real value of this is if you've also got the numbers from the previous year to compare, so that we can see how much is increased by. And this is an important thing to note, that what numbers we're looking at here are actually the average number of observation, average per observation. So you might have observed her learning behaviour in autumn 1. You might have been in and done 5 or 6 observations. 15 is the average number of times that you saw what you were looking for in that lesson in autumn term 1. Okay, so this average will again help to validate what you're putting forward as evidence for that potential increase in banding.